Alrighty, so our first roadmap roundup for this evening is the one from May 17th. And Nazeris is taking care of a few last-minute touches to the notes, and so I'm going to read through this and talk about these things while he's finishing those up. Roadmap Roundup, May 17th, 2023. Actually, here, let me make this bigger so I can see it. Okay. Alrighty, so happy Wednesday, everyone. Every 2 weeks, we accompany the Roadmap Roundup with a brief explanatory note to give you insight into the decision-making that led to any changes. This is part of an effort to make our communications more transparent, more specific, and more insightful for all of you who helped to make Star Citizen and Squadron 42 possible. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into this week's Roadmap Roundup, CIG Community Team. Let's see. So, notable changes for May 17th, 2023. So this is particularly exciting for me because I remember when this was announced, actually first announced on Twitter. Progress Tracker, Vehicle Content, MTL. With this published, we're adding a new team to the Progress Tracker that you may have seen mentioned in recent monthly reports. Vehicle Content MTL, or MTLVC for short. This team is based in Montreal, and much like the other two vehicle content teams, is comprised of artists and designers, and they'll be working on bringing the vehicles of Star Citizen to life. Additionally, with our next publish, we'll be starting to add the Q4 2023 schedule and its deliverables for upstream teams. If you watched the SCL from not yesterday, but last week, the all-vehicle SCL, which was just full of really good information. I saw some people making comments and sort of blowing it off a little bit because some of it was, repeating things that we had heard before. But as long as it isn't a question, that's can I slave these to the pilot? Can these be operated by AI Blade? Stupid things that we've heard over and over and over again, generic things. As long as it's them reiterating and expanding or expounding on things that we haven't heard about in a while, it's good information because it gives it, because sometimes they'll give updates, or they'll provide additional information. And so it might not all be new, but it's also, even if it's not all new, it's all confirmatory, which is a good thing, So we're not left wondering, hey, has this changed? And so one thing related to this that came out of that SCL is when they talked about what vehicles are in production, what things are going in production, one of the things that John Cruz said is that the Montreal vehicle team has 4 artists and a designer. The designer is actually on his way back to Montreal, and so it'll be a team of 5. And they started work in April. Those 4 artists already have started work. And so they've already actually have been working for 2 months. And they're working on what John Cruz said. He said they are working on 2 variants of an existing ship. He didn't say vehicle, he said ship. Now, sometimes they misspeak and they just say ship, vehicle, vehicle, ship. So it could be a ground vehicle. We don't know. But we do know that the 2 things that are on the Progress Tracker under the Montreal vehicle team are both variants of something that is already existing. And so I made a quick video speculating about that and made it in relation to the Tumbril Storm, which is in concept, and they also confirmed that it is actually well into production in that same SCL. It's actually well into gray box, and in some places is in art already, I think is what was said.
Yep, and you can see it in the latest sneak peek.
Yeah, yep. It's the cockpit. Yeah.
It's very
meant boat for sure. Yeah, definitely a boat.
Meant boat.
Most likely,
I mean,
Star Citizen's equivalent of a aluminum boat with an outboard motor for fishing in the shallow waters of the shorelines around Lake Hurston. So yeah, definitely a boat for fishing, or if you're going looking for turtles, But yeah. So yeah, if you haven't watched that SCL, I highly encourage going back and checking that out. Even if you just go to that first comment in the bottom and look at the timestamps and find the information you're looking for, or you watch a summary, it's good information. Don't miss out on it. Lots of stuff that's worth taking note of in there. So, it'll be interesting to see what else gets added to the Montreal plate, and how those sprints that are already on there get expanded upon, or what comes next for them. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out. Oh, the other thing I was going to mention is they talked a lot about the vehicle pipeline. And if you're a follower of the podcast, you'll know that you may remember that Nazeris and I did a big spectrum pulse on... Something just made a loud noise in my hotel room. We did a big spectrum pulse back in, I think it was December, when it was shortly after John Cruz said that it would take a year to 18 months to make the Polaris, which people misquoted and took that quote wildly out of context, especially not knowing how the pipeline works and how production works, and just absolutely ran with it. And so Nazeris and I did a big spectrum pulse back then on the vehicle pipeline, and why people's expectations for how long the backlog, especially of capital ships, why their speculations were wildly out of context and horribly inaccurate. It was a fun episode. We had a lot of good information, but that coupled with the episode that we did on the Building 100 Star Systems, talking about how CIG builds these pipelines and builds tools and, the workflows, and then adds more people to the team, grows the team in order to increase throughput. It's a process that CIG does across the game. And so they talked a lot about that in that SCL. And one of the other things that they mentioned was that they are adding more vehicle teams. And so they already have the really big vehicle team in Manchester. They've got another one that's not nearly as big, but that one's in Los Angeles, Santa Monica. They're adding 2 more vehicle teams that they've been growing their team in Manchester that they have already, and then they're going to build 2 more teams in Manchester as part of their extended growth plans in Manchester, on top of the one that they just built in Montreal. So the throughput for making vehicles is going to be going up over the next year dramatically. And people are like, oh God, how long is it going to take, them to get them spun up and actually making vehicles? And it's like, this team for Montreal, I first heard about this, the guy who's leading it, who got picked to run the team, took the job just a couple months ago. Like, it was back in like February or whatever. It was in the first quarter of this year, because he tweeted about it when he accepted the job offer. And so if you follow a lot of the devs, you knew about that beforehand. And within a couple of months, they already had the team formed and they're starting work already on 2 new variants. And so if you remember when they made the announcement about the Montreal team that there is building, that they are building they're using to build the everything within Star Systems, and how long that team took to get built up. And that team is nearing 100 people now, and it's 2 years old. And we've already seen what they have been doing with building tools and then making locations from the tools. They are just going like gangbusters. So a lot of the doom and gloom of like, oh, it's going to take forever to get them working. And it's like, there's no evidence of that. There's zero evidence of them taking, is it going to take months? Yeah. If it's a larger team, it's going to take months for them to get spun up. But, the bigger the team, the longer it's going to take for them to get rolling. But as they're hiring people, those people will get started learning the tricks of the trade and learning the tools and getting things into production. Just like this small team is already already working. Within 3 months, they're already working on variants. And so it's the only obstacle is how fast can CIG hire people. And it's not a matter of, CIG is making more money than they know what to do with. They're doing their best to hire people as fast as possible. That's why they're building another team in Montreal, is in order to, spread their recruiting wings in order to get more people. So, Bit of a tangent, but related to what was said.
Yeah. And like they even just said on the vehicle SCL that right now, if they were to focus on all the cap ships, they could do one a year.
Yeah. Yep.
Like every single cap ship. That's Polaris to Endeavor, but like that needs tech. But like Polaris, the Perseus, the Kraken, Idris is mostly done. Javelin's mostly done.
Mm-hmm.
But like he didn't say like the small cap ships. He said any cap ship. He said all the cap ships they could get one a year out. So
yeah. It's not a matter of production capacity for getting those ships out. It's a matter of having the gameplay and deciding when is the right time to start working on them so that the ships make sense. And yeah, it sucks. People want their BMM because it was first sold 10 years ago. Totally get it. But that doesn't change
BMM's
anything. Yeah. So yeah, if you haven't watched those episodes or the episode about the vehicle pipeline, if you haven't watched the most recent SCL, I highly encourage you go watch it and watch it critically. The other thing on the progress tracker is they said that the next publish will be starting to add the Q4 2023 schedule, and it's deliverables for the upstream teams. As you know, the progress tracker, along with many other things on the website, imploded, and so that didn't happen. Jake said that they are already working on it, and shouldn't be a problem getting it back up and getting it working. It was something with the way everything imports from their databases or something like that. But they won't be adding the Q4 update until the next roadmap update. And so not this next Wednesday, but the following. I think it's the 14th of June. So release view. With this published, we're toggling the Alpha 319 column to released. The RSI links will remain marked as committed until it's released during Invictus launch week, which we already know. And that is it for the May 17th Roadmap Roundup. So,
wow, lots of work.
Yeah. For the May 31st Roadmap Roundup, and this one is a bit more juicy. We'll read through the little intro as always. Happy Wednesday, or May 31st, 2023, 1 p.m. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Every 2 weeks, we accompany the Roadmap Roundup with a brief explanatory note to give you the insight into the decision-making that led to any changes. This is part of an effort to make our communications more transparent, more specific, and more insightful for all of you who helped to make Star Citizen and Squadron 42 possible. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into this week's Roadmap Roundup CIG community team. Notable changes for May 31st, 2023. Release view. Let's scroll down. So this all came out, and then we got the ISC Part 1 from last Thursday with a bunch of info about all the Arena Commander stuff. So, release view. The following cards have been added to the 319, the Alpha 319 column on release view. Mirai, Fury, building, implementing, and balancing Mirai's Snub Fighter, the Fury, as a game-ready vehicle. Mirai Fury MX, building, implementing, and balancing Mirai's Snub Fighter, the Fury, as a game-ready vehicle, the one with the missiles. I haven't actually looked, but I don't think we have the ability, because I know we can't on Progress Tracker, but I don't think we ever figured out which of the unannounced those were on the Progress Tracker before it committed ritual suicide. So we will be in for a surprise come next Roadmap Roundup to find out, okay, what of the unannounced vehicles is the Fury and the MX. So those are moved over to the or put on the release view, and then the following cards have been added to the Alpha 320 column on the release view. And actually, open this. Whoops, nope, stop. That's not what I wanted. There we go. Okay. Arena Commander front-end update. Replacement of the current electronic access front end. This makes switching switching modes, vehicles, loadouts, as well as creating lobbies a more fluid experience, as well as giving developers the tools to adjust features and create new ones much more easily. And so this is removing all the flash from the Arena Commander, Star Marine screens. Puppet, good to see you this evening. Thanks for joining us. But this is removing all that flash that was not very performative, and replacing it with the new front end, which I believe is all building blocks, which is going to allow them to make new UI, make better UI, have things work and function more appropriately, but also be able to iterate and add things and change things much more easily. Arena Commander, new racetracks. Test your racing prowess in Euterpe Icebreaker, Miner's Lament, the Snake Pit, and Yadar Valley, so those are the ones that are in the PU now, as some of the first persistent universe locations entering Arena Commander alongside Halloran Circuit, a brand new racetrack on the New Horizon Speedway. So New Horizon is the one that we already had, but this is a new track at New Horizon, if I'm understanding correctly. I haven't raced in forever, so I'm not in any way, shape, or form well informed about racing in Star Citizen, whether it's in the PU or in Arena Commander. Arena Commander New Horizon Speedway rework. One of Star Citizen's oldest locations gets its lost my spot. Gets its long-awaited update. The 3 Murray Cup racetracks hosted in the New Horizon Speedway have had their tracks improved and location moved to the holiday resort planet Green, the 3rd planet of the Ellis system. And the Ellis system is actually only 2 jumps from Stanton. It's on the other side. You go from Stanton to Magnus, Magnus to Ellis, if I remember correctly. So it could be a PU location that we see in the not-too-distant future. Maybe. Who knows? So they not only did they add all those new racetracks from the PU as well as a new racetrack at New Horizon, but they also did a big update to the existing racetracks at New Horizon. Arena Commander new dogfighting map, Jericho Station. Stanton's INS Jericho debuts as the newest location for all dogfighting game modes in Arena Commander. This true zero-G open space environment has players face off with few distractions and high performance in the lightest of all our maps. So should be getting very high frames there, and also not have to worry about flying into asteroids and such, or only the single station. So if you are flying around in Arena Commander at Jericho Station and you plow into Jericho Station, the one and only obstacle on the map, you might need to rethink your priorities and whether you want to be a pilot. Arena Commander new elimination map, Echo 11. The FPS map Echo 11, previously exclusive to the game mode Control, has a new variant tailored for elimination. So you'll now be able to play elimination matches at Echo 11. Mike Lansing, I feel attacked. Yeah, I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I'm a terrible space pilot. This is why I fly dropships. Get out of the space and down to the ground where it's safe for me. Yeah. And scrolling down some more. Arena Commander new map Security Post Korea. One of the new additions to Arena Commander from the Persistent Universe. Security Post Korea will host all Arena Commander game modes, both FPS and dogfighting, except for Classic Race. So you won't be able to race around Security Post Korea, but you'll be able to play the dogfighting modes as well as the FPS modes at Security Post Korea. So there will be elimination and control at SPK. So I'm really looking forward to ISC this next Thursday, which is where they'll be talking about what used to be Star Marine stuff. So we'll be seeing more about that and maybe we'll have even more maps. Who knows? Pardon me. Arena Commander. Oh, here we go. Arena Commander new dogfighting map, Winter Circle. Alongside the reworked New Horizons Speedway maps comes a long-requested atmospheric map for dogfighting modes. Battle in the Earth-like atmosphere above the beautiful planet Green, the third planet of the Ellis system. So, my question regarding this map, because it says dogfighting map, and does that mean that it includes free flight? Because if it includes free flight, that means that I could take my Valkyrie into the Winter Circle map, around Green, and I could practice my hot drops onto the planet through the atmosphere. Because that's what I want to be able to practice.
You can get out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
you can't get out.
Well, and I don't even have to get out. I just want to be able to come down in and then rapidly. Oh boy, that was a big sneeze. Pardon me.
Oof.
Yeah, oh gosh, I had the video saved. Somebody in the content creation community did a really good tutorial video on it. But it's where you're able to come down, either at a steep angle or straight down and point your nose at your LZ, where you want to land, and then rapidly change, your attitude. So flip down at the end and put your VTOLs down, so that way you're able to rapidly settle, down like that, after coming in screaming hot and fast, and the curve settle into your LZ to really shorten your time to the ground for your troops and avoid anti-aircraft fire. And so that's what I want to be able to practice with the dropship, being able to practice those maneuvers. And so I'm hoping that I'll be able to do it, on Green, on that map in free flight. That way you can just practice over and over and over again. Arena Commander experimental game modes. And so I actually just tweeted about this. And once I finished reading this, I'm going to play a little something because I want to hear your thoughts. Both in the comments as well as if you're watching this later on YouTube, leave a comment in the comments below, and I want to hear what you are thinking regarding this, because Nazeris and I have already batted this around a little bit. Arena Commander experimental game modes. And so if you watched ISC, you'll remember that there was like 9 little game mode icons that you could select from in the new Arena Commander front end. And one of the icons was blurred out, and we don't know what it said. And so, eagerly anticipating finding out what that said. But they did tell us about the experimental game modes, and these. We'll read the description. These limited time game modes range from simple twists on current modes to entirely new modes. And it's this next sentence that's the most important part, so I'm going to read it twice. This initiative will not only allow a rapid iteration of game modes to be put in players' hands faster, but also allow all teams to gather vital analytic data for specific activities, equipment, vehicles, and in-development features. This initiative will not only allow rapid iteration of game modes to be put in players' hands faster, but also allow all teams to gather vital analytic data for specific activities, equipment, vehicles, and in-development features. And now I'm going to pull up a little clip so you can think.
Like, that is like really important. Basically, with all the stuff that's specific locked away in Squadron, they don't have the amount of data they have with all the Star Citizen stuff. So this allows them to just, let's say they need to work on the AI traits that they've been working on. So they'll make a map for it, put in experimental mode, saying like, a situational like defend or something, and they're able to test out the AI there, or hacking, or combined arms. So like it lets them use more of the things they need to test without dedicating it to Star Citizen.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
very excite.
I'm really looking forward to hearing more information about this, because they can get really creative with all sorts of different things, and B, it helps them get the data they need for things a lot easier, rather than, okay, the only data you get is in the PU. And so let's listen to this little clip. This is from CitizenCon 2949 in 2019. And tell me if you think the language is similar.
So, really, why did we build this, right? Well, at some point in the PU, we are going to get to that level of combat going on. Now, you know, that the combat in the PU happens a little more sparsely, and it has to do a little bit with the player counts. But the minute that we put all this stuff together, this better be fun. We can't make it fun after the fact. It's got to be fun before. So it really gives us a really, really solid analytical environment to really hone the gameplay, balance things against each other. So again, how many shots does it take of a railgun to take down an Ursa? How many Ursa shots does it take down to take a Valkyrie? All of these things, they do happen in the PU, but a little more sparsely. And it can take some time. So having said that, when combat occurs, it's really got to be fun. So
Yeah, no, that does sound really similar.
Does the language not sound similar?
Mentioning analytics and things.
Yeah, mentioning analytics and testing out, you know, he mentioned specific scenarios, but they talk about specific activities, equipment, vehicles, and in-development features. They talk about how many shots does it take for, you know, a railgun to kill an Ursa, for an Ursa to kill a Valkyrie, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but with the experimental game modes, yeah, they can do combined arms stuff within there and let us test combined arms stuff, you know, like a Theaters of War type mode, whatever they want to end up calling it. But they can set up all sorts of different scenarios that aren't just limited to, you know, the combined arms scenario. You know, they talked about later on, it was in the Theaters of War, there was like an SCL about it. Like a couple of weeks or maybe a month or two after, I forget when it was, after CitizenCon. And, you know, Sean Tracy talked about, you know, yeah, we could set up, you know, a boarding scenario. We could set up, you know, a capital ship fight with escorts scenario. You know, all these different things. And, well, you know, they were branding that, putting that under the Theaters of War combined arms game mode. But now it's, you know, they're really just talking about experimental game modes, and it doesn't have to be Theaters of War. It doesn't have to be related to combined arms. It can be anything, but it can also include combined arms like Theaters of War. It can also include those other scenarios that Sean Tracy was originally thinking about putting under the Theaters of War game mode. So yeah. I really think that's what the experimental game modes is going to end up being, partly what Theaters of War was meant to be, but also other things on top of that.
Yeah. And also, that was before the whole team really spun up for our main commander feature team. So all the naming of things and how everything was going to filter out got all jostled around.
Yeah, Theaters of War was always a working title. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. They even said that.
Also, Ep also had a really good suggestion. I really hope he said we get to test master modes before they put it in the PU. That depends on when they're planning on putting it in, but I would love to see that as well. Specifically because dying every time you want to turn on Quantum Drive sounds really stupid. There was a thought there that went away. But yeah. I really hope eventually, not anytime soon, but eventually, they have a mode editor that players can use. So that players, specifically orgs, can set up scenarios and run drills in a simulation. Because it's a sim pod. It's a sim pod. It's built for simulations of combat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially not only being able to edit the scenario, but maybe being able to edit the map. Like, oh, okay, here are some assets that you can place in a
Rastar
space map.
exists.
Yeah. Like, okay, sweet. We want to have this station. Just drop it in there in the middle. Or, here are a couple of asteroid packs or something like that.
Dude, even just... Okay, let's go full game studio, full tilt, right? Break off Star Citizen Arcade, right? Just call it the Star Citizen Arcade, right? Into its own thing. Make those packs. Make all the things you can add to a thing. Make packs of DLC. Like you can here's like the Stanton pack that you can buy and have all these Stanton locations you can plop in. Asteroid packs, underground packs, like monetize the crap out of it. Do it. Like that works so well.
Hold on, I'm going back to the notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's the 2 roadmap roundups. I'm also, before we move on to the ShinyTracker bit, I'm also curious to think about whether, okay, so this is what was added to the release view for 320 for Arena Commander. I wonder if are they going to add more things for Arena Commander that they didn't talk about on this SCL or ISC, but we'll talking about in the next one. For the ground combat or FPS combat aspect of it, because I hope we see more on that end because that's more my speed. But as well as what things for the Arena Commander feature team might we see in the Q4 update. I don't remember if they are an upstream or a downstream team, so we're going to have to take a look at that. And so now, I was wondering, is there going to be more added to the 320 for Arena Commander once we get the Part 2 ISC? They talk about that sort of stuff. Like, did they only add the stuff that they talked about, and they're going to add more when we get after this?
Well,
next
they didn't talk about elimination map.
Yeah, they didn't talk. I think there could be more that they talk about, like maybe another game mode or more maps or something, but they don't want to spoil it. I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe.
But they also.
That sounds like them.
I don't know if. Let's pull it up real quick. We'll just pull up the companion guide and see. Yeah. Okay, Arena Commander feature team is a downstream team, so they only get their schedule 1 quarter in advance. So we'll just have to keep an eye on them and see if they get any deliverables added, next quarter to their schedule, as well as I wonder if any of their things that were unannounced will change to announced now. We'll just have to, with the next update, we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, the release view for 320 is already shaping up pretty nicely. Lots and lots of gameplay stuff. Not only Arena Commander, but other stuff. And then, of course, there's the Hull C. And we'll talk more about that at a later date. But let's get over to ShinyTracker. So because the progress tracker is borked, there weren't really any changes for the scheduled deliverables report or the Delta report for May 17th. And there wasn't anything for May 31st. But what we do have is the new scheduled work timeline. And I'm an idiot and forgot to open this and get it loading because it does take a second.
But I told you before we started to.
You know I'm bad about taking directions, but I had actually opened it up prior, so maybe it just had it cached or something because that loaded really quickly.
It does not cache.
Well, it's
by the
already,
way, it only loads in about a page. So,
okay.
So there's a lot of scrolling and a lot of loading to do.
Yeah. So since the progress tracker is dead and waiting to be revived, we're going to have progress tracker Jesus, on the 14th or something, whenever that is. Yeah, Wednesday the 14th. Yeah. Jake had a very long day when that was going on because Jake was literally in the middle of moving to a new apartment.
No.
And then the progress tracker roadmap, amongst other things, with the community, just all caught on fire. And it all caught on fire while Jake had a sofa and was climbing upstairs with it or something. That was
Oh my gosh.
that was Jake's day. So I was joking around about it with Jake. I felt very badly for them. But one good thing is that Shiny Hobo caches or backs up a copy. I don't know how it works. They've explained it to me, but I forgot already. But the new tool that they have is like the progress tracker in that it shows all the different deliverables, but it's searchable, and so you can search for a deliverable. You can break it down by team and only see their teams. You can say, okay, I only want to see things that are for Squadron 42, things that are for Star Citizen, things that are both, things that are being worked on right now. So like the scheduled deliverables report, you can just see things that are being worked on right now. And you can go back based off, because they index it. You can go back and see where things were, what the roadmap looked like, at one point. So like, oh, wait a minute, did something change? And you can see when it changed. But it also breaks down by color the whether work is a particular sprint is part-time or full-time work. Like if they're working, for example, right here on Actor Status Tier 2, this sprint right here at the end of March, beginning of April, they had 3 tasks, but they were working, these people were working on this as well as something else during that period. But then when these people were assigned to it from here on out, they were working on it full-time. And so it gives you a much better idea of how much work is being done, and when it is being done, because this will show gaps in the timeline, whereas the progress tracker does not. And it will also breaks it down so you'll have 2 bars stacked on top of each other. So the work being done on the additional derelict settlements right here, you can see it's the Montreal Sandbox team. This is their scheduled sprint, their scheduled work. And you can see that they have artists working on tasks and designers working on tasks. So it breaks it down by discipline as well.
And it also, one cannot be overstated, is it breaks it down by task.
Mm-hmm.
All these individual segments are these tasks. And we even, on some of them, see a little gap. Like, for instance, on Cutting Tier 2, between...
One of my favorite features.
Yeah, between the first task and the second task.
Let me pull it up.
Okay.
And actually, after you're done with that, I'm going to go back up to we're actually going to look at the Squadron ones, because the Squadron ones illustrate a lot of this really well. And it's something that I and Shiny have been talking to Paul about how this stuff has changed in the last year for Squadron. But there you go. Here's Cutting Tier 2.
All right. So first 4. Okay. So on the Spirit, which is right above it, between each of these blocks is a couple days. So the first and second, between the first and second bar on the Cutting Tier 2 is the next day. And then once we get to that big bar, it ends the 30th, and the next task doesn't start till the 5th of the next month. It shows us the gaps in between. And something that I just realized when looking at it, when I started this whole thing, is it shows the different task lengths compared to discipline. So the bottom bar is the weapon feature team engineering, and the bar on top of it is the graphics team engineering. And the graphics team spent longer on each of their 3 tasks than the weapon feature did on all of their little tasks. But even within there, some of the bars are a bit longer. So some of the tasks are a little bit longer than some of the other tasks. And it's just so much information. So good. It's so granular.
Yeah, it's
really
really important that it, the being able to break down the bars and show the gaps in work. Because this is another thing that they talked about in SCL last week that most people who follow Star Citizen have no idea about whatsoever. And I wish we could pull up the progress tracker and here's what this looks like on the progress tracker. Here's what this looks like on the schedule, the timeline here, and be able to show these gaps, because John Crew talked about it in SCL. He's like, the progress tracker doesn't show these gaps in work. And so, if somebody is working on something and they work on for a week and then they put it down for a week and work on something else and then they work on it for another week, it shows 3 weeks work, but it's actually 2 different weeks split apart. And that's a small example, but there are lots of things that look like they've been working on forever, when in fact they've got 2 small sprints that, and only a little bit of work. And people, mop and bucket is a meme because people don't understand this at all.
I want a mop. Gosh dang it, give me the ability to mop the floors of my ship. I hate that, I'm the one that, latches onto all these memes for not meme reasons, like the Argo for Best in Show and the Mop and Bucket. Give me the what is it called? Pressure Wash Simulator for the outside and Mop and Bucket for the inside.
So for the Squadron chapters, here's where we are right now. And then if you were to look at all these chapters that are being worked on, you'll notice that Paul talked about this recently, and Shiny has talked to him about it. I've talked to him about it. Since basically Q2, Q3 last year, there's a lot more full-time work going on the different Squadron chapters than part-time work. It used to be a lot more part-time work. You see a lot more orange in the first half of last year going back into 2021. Oops, scroll too far up. Versus in the last 6 months to a year, it's been a lot more green, a lot more full-time work. Does it mean something? Maybe, don't know. But how much work is being done on the different chapters of Squadron 42 has gone up significantly. Shiny says, I was asked...
Wheel back.
What?
Hold control on your keyboard and mouse wheel back.
Oh, I can make it bigger.
Now look at the chapters. Go all the way back. What do I have
There
mine
we
at?
go.
I have mine at 33 right now, and the amount of data I can see is intense.
Yeah. So that gives you a really good representation. Look at all that orange and a lot more green over here from about Q2, Q3 on.
Mm-hmm.
And, not to be too overly hopium about it, but if you remember, at Q2, Q3 is, Q3 really, is when we got the partner development presentation for CitizenCon. And they talked about how they have gotten, it was the update of, hey, all these teams were reprioritized on the Squadron 42 to work on these features along with many others. And now we're finally they talked about how, everybody passed out at that section of CitizenCon. I've watched it 6 or 7 times. But it because it was a lot of talking, but a lot of good information, it just is really difficult to critically listen to because it's Richard Tyrer and Chris Roberts. And they make Nazeris and I look concise. Yeah. And so but what they said is they talked a lot about how, these features, even though sometimes they look rough or they unfinished, they just because they're unpolished doesn't mean they're not in the dev branch. And what they told us is that all of these things that the core gameplay pillar team was moved over to work on are in a state of polishing pretty much, for the most part, but they're all in game dev. They're all in the dev branch of Squadron 42, in that the developers are using them in order to finish building the chapters, in order to finish with the gameplay. And so that way, as things are polished, and looking better, well, it's already in the game. They don't have to. They're not being held up by these things anymore, and so they're able to go in and work on these chapters full time and get them polished and get them ready to go. And so could be a little bit of hopium, but it's connecting the dots. It's connecting pieces of information that we have, things that we know, in order to paint a picture of what's going on with Squadron. And of course, we know that Squadron was now removed from the store.
And Tyler goes, "No, nothing's going on. Pay no attention to the
don't look over
movement
here
of the store." Yeah.
Don't mind
Shiny?
the man behind the curtain. What is the?
You said you were asked about the deliverables for Squadron not going up against the Edge. What was your answer? Oh, arbiter of the third-party timeline. You're basically not Clang. What is it? Kang. You're basically Kang now.
Yeah, don't look at this thing over here. So yeah, if you haven't used the ShinyTracker before, or you're unfamiliar with it, just know that this is added to the ShinyTracker.app page. It's up near the top. You can look at this at any time. You can look at here. I'm going to zoom back in so you can see.
I'm just having fun
very
just
small,
staring at the data.
But you can look at what it looked like at every update.
Of this as a
you can
display.
search for specific deliverables. You can look at just the teams, which is another thing that's really helpful. And you can put these things on and then apply the filters, and it's pretty incredible. I'm not going to lie. I'm a huge fan of this tool. So play around with it. Tell us what you think. Let me know in the comments if you're watching this down on YouTube later, or hit me up on in my Discord, or Nazeris' Discord, or on Twitter. We want to hear what you think. We want to hear what things you're seeing that maybe we haven't. Information sharing is a good thing. And so the more eyes we have on this information, the better. And that's part of why we do this. And Nazeris, why don't you tell us about your project while I pull it up? Link.
All right. Let me now post it all the places, and then get my cat, because apparently he wants in. That, and we'll also throw it in Shelly's. There we go. All right. So the first actual release of public viewing, I guess, of the currently WIP monthly report and roadmap index, currently only up to mid-2022. Though,
but it's like 2 years worth.
Yeah.
Start,
starting in 2019. I don't have any of the legend for it yet, so this is kind of early days for it. Starting in mid-2019 and going to mid-2022. This is every subject, every basically tile that would be on the progress tracker or the release view put onto a list, and then given a nice little header and definition of what happened to it. So not only can you go open up whatever report you want at the top, you can also see what it said about it on the spreadsheet, see what happened to it on the spreadsheet, and search for when it if it was removed, came back, or different things. So I actually learned just before the opening of the show, if you actually search for something, let's say hacking it, and do the find all button, it actually shows you, because of how I labeled each cell, that I can look for maybe hacking delayed or hacking added, or the different things that happened with hacking. So because of how I actually labeled it out, you can actually see it and then go to specific times in the hacking process or the lineage of the deliverable. So this is going to I'm going to be using this a lot. I hope it's of benefit to you guys. Currently, like I said, we only have up to mid-2021 roadmap roundups. I will eventually get to the monthly reports and do vaguely the same thing, but it will probably be only by team, not by ship or feature. It'll probably only be by team, which means I need to go and make sure I know every team and put a section for every team when I start. Yeah, but I think it will also be... Yeah, I have a plan for it. So that is what we got. I'll be hopefully finishing up 2022 relatively soon here. And also I did get in a lot of the informational ones. So April 7th was a big one where they introduced the progress tracker. So that I had to figure out some interesting ways of presenting that data. So it ended up being like a double wide, so it looks very, very weird. But post that, I was able to start adding which it was added to, whether it be release view or progress tracker. And currently, because it is WIP, I am still, when I figure out an addition or a way to better present something in a current cell or a current deliverable, I will start adding that. So for instance, I only started adding which place was added to in the last four columns. So I've added to progress tracker, added to release view. I also have different adding to different release columns. Forget where there was one of these updates. I've just been chewing through these very quickly.
I apologize about the air conditioner right behind me. It is quite loud in my room. It's really great when it goes off in the middle of the night.
So I believe it's May 19th. Has a whole bunch of added to this specific release. You can also go back in time and see the death of 4.0, the original, when they thought they were going to add 4.0 just because they were at 3.9. And they said, haha, maybe we don't do that and we call it 3.10 instead of 4.0. So that's on here. Where is that one? It may have been January 27th, I believe. Yeah, lots of stuff. Lots of stuff getting done, a lot of stuff getting deleted, but you can actually like track everything now. And most importantly, it's all in one spot. So one of the big things that I'm pretty sure Tree has had, but I've had when I'm trying to do something, is to find where it left, where something disappeared.
When was it added? Where did it disappear? Because constantly, like if you miss something, if you miss one update, and you're like, wait a minute, where did it go? And or you just forget, and then you're like, oh, how am I going to find? It's super tedious to go back through, even if you use you look at the com links and you search the com links. Like I've used that, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, it didn't even find for resource management in looking at the monthly reports today and the last few days and stuff. You can go into the comlink search section on the RSI website, and I put in resource management, and it didn't find the things that I was looking for. I was like, I know it's been in the monthly reports, and then I just opened up a whole bunch of them, basically every one for the last year, and I found multiple instances of it being mentioned, and it just, for some reason or another, it wasn't finding it, and I was like, okay, well, you have to do this the old-fashioned way, but this is what's going to allow Nazeris and I to search these things and find them much more quickly and efficiently without having to open up 20 different tabs of monthly report or roadmap roundup.
Yeah, and that is like not just to us too, but this is a resource that will be proliferated, just like Darja's ISC segments or the Shiny report. Like this is going to be a community available resource. So it's posted currently in chat, in Paul's Discord and Tree's Discord. I hadn't posted in my Discord yet. I'll get to that soon.
Everything but yours.
Everything but mine, because I forgot mine because
I need to pin it.
Reasons. So, yeah, I hope you all enjoy. I hope you actually get use out of it. If you don't get use out of it, then it's failed.
More resources, more information, more better.
Yes. So, what Tree? What do you think of it? What do you think of the whole thing?
Oh, I love it. Because that's one of my, because I mean, if you look at like our show notes, so much of our show notes is going back and finding updates on the development of something via monthly reports, and like I'm constantly talking to people and explaining things about the progress tracker and the roadmap, Nazeris and I are probably two of less than 10 people in the world who follow the roadmap and the progress tracker with the level of detail that we do. And, being able to, when people are asking questions, more quickly and easily find the answers to those questions is a good thing. Because the way that I've had to do it before, is a nightmare. And yeah, so like, yeah, it's work in progress, but even if just having the information available and being able to control F things, it saves, every time I have to go searching for something, saves minutes to tens of minutes of me searching and multiple tabs, and makes it a lot also easier to oh, okay, well, I'll just have to go looking for this on my computer when I get home and not being able to find the information what I'm looking for versus, oh, okay, I could pull this up on my phone, and, go find something and then just search through the, okay, this is the entry that I'm looking for hacking, like you're talking about, and that's, and then you've got the links at the top, and or the verbiage is already right there in the cell. So, yeah, I like it.
They were nice enough to actually note in the Roadmap Roundups. I will learn English someday. When teams were added, so as they worked on the progress tracker and got that updated, they actually did list all the teams. So there is when teams were added.
Mm-hmm.
So we do also have that history.
Okay. Yeah, like Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal will be up there when I get there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is what I got. I hope you guys enjoy.
Amchuka, welcome. Thanks for joining us. You are not too late. We are just finishing up the Roadmap Roundup portion. We also talked about this new index that Naz is working on for the monthly reports and the Roadmap Roundups to make it those things searchable and more easily, making it more easy to find specific information, just to being able to use the index and Control F for particular things you're looking for. And then we also went over the new ShinyTracker scheduled work timeline, which is the progress tracker on steroids, maybe. What's the Star Citizen equivalent for steroids?
Oh, I don't remember which one it is. You can also figure out how many entries of any given thing there are on the spreadsheet. So, for instance, there's 400 things added, and 400 things, or 400 times they said added, and 167 times they said removed. Most of those are the tiles, but sometimes like they said removed, sometimes like in the intro paragraph. Which I used to have them as notes, but you can't search within notes in Excel. So I had to go like through at least almost a year's worth of the spreadsheet and reconfigure everything to make sure that the intro notes were there, because some of them have searchable things like version numbers or staggered development noted. So like you can search up when staggered development started. So I need to make them actual cells and not notes of cells. That was fun, and by fun I mean just terrible. I'm happy with it.
But that's it for this portion. And now we're going to get into the spectrum pulse. And let me make sure I've got the right things pulled up. And actually, to make it easier for me on the back end, I'm going to transition us back over to the other screen and then pull the things up that way you guys don't see all the other stuff. So 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
And all right. And so Nazeris is going to start us off with components. And I'm pulling up the first article, and I should have everything from the notes. So you just tell me, I've got the first 2 articles pulled up. I've got that video link as well as the things from the Q&A. So just tell me when you want me to scroll down or switch over or something.
Yeah, it's lots of work. So the problem with like going through each of those articles